We are at the forefront of many innovative and exciting things developing in the world of senior living. With Tim Mallett, CEO of Forefront Living, as our guide, this show will shine a light on how older adults can embrace these changes to live active, happy, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Through discussions with senior living and hospice professionals, architects and designers, and people of all ages, will help today's seniors envision the art of the possible and take steps toward achieving the future of their dreams. Welcome to At the Forefront.
Welcome to At the Forefront. I'm Tim Mallett, CEO of Forefront Living, and we have a very special episode today. I think, as most of you watching or listening know, there are very few depictions of Alzheimer's disease, of the journey of Alzheimer's, of the journey the caregivers go through that we can find in film or in television. Today, we are going to talk about something very special about a film. We have a very special guest that I'm really eager and excited to introduce. Our guest today is an Order of the British Empire recipient, an actor, producer, author, advocate, philanthropist. I'm happy to say good friend. Jane Seymour is joining us today to discuss a film that she made during the pandemic called Ruby's Choice. Ruby's Choice depicts the journey of a woman through Alzheimer's disease and how it impacted her family and her life. So with that, welcome, Jane.
Thank you, Tim. It's good to be here.
Jane, films about Alzheimer's, dementia are rare. Why is this film so important?
Well, I personally have been touched by it. Two of my uncles passed away from Alzheimer's, one of whom was one of the world's most renowned professors. So that was really amazingly frightening to see. I also was involved with making the film. I produced the film I'll Be Me about Glenn Campbell. So I spent a lot of time with their family and still do about through their journey, what we depicted in the film, but also what was going on behind the scenes. I was actually there and saw it and filmed it and saw it. And I felt that this particular film that was offered to me really was spot on. I had never seen a film that was so accurate about that journey, and particularly also about the journey of the family. You know, the different stage they go through from, oh, well, she's forgetful, oh, well, she's old, well, you know, we can take care of her ourselves, and then finally, what are we going to do with Ruby? But what's wonderful about this movie is, first of all, it was written by a man who's worked in the same field that you guys are in for 30 years. So of course it was accurate. You know, he'd never written a script before, but this was his story. This is what he wanted to tell. And the other thing is that our character Ruby sort of unearths, without really realizing it, all the secrets and all the bad choices or difficult choices that everyone in her family have to deal with, and inadvertently helps them, so that everyone ends up making the choice they need to make in their life, and they're difficult choices, every one of them. And through her journey through Alzheimer's, she ends up not only making her own choice, but helping everyone who loves her around her, making the right choices for themselves and learning how to move forward in life and learning how to deal with things that would be incredibly difficult. So it makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you think, it makes you realize, you know, how difficult it is to navigate life anyway, especially when someone you love dearly is losing their present moment. You know, they're living in the past. They're struggling to be in the present.
Jane, these films are rare, and they're not often endorsed, but the backstory to Ruby's Choice and how it came to be a film, and then what you had to do during the height of the pandemic to make the film is very much a story within a story. Can you tell us how the film came to be?
Well, this remarkable man from New Zealand called Sir Owen Glenn funded it through his family trust, I think. Well, and he has an organization called Spark for Life. So any money, I think half of any money profits that are made globally on this film will go directly to that organization. And I think the mission was to help people navigate the world of Alzheimer's and the world around it, you know, the caregivers and the family, and And, how do you do it when you don't have any money? And what does it look like? And what are the do's and don'ts? I mean, every time this movie has been played and I've seen people in the audience, they've come up to me and they've said, oh my gosh, through watching this movie today, I now know what I can do with my loved one. I now know how I can speak to them. I now know what to do and what not to do. And I think it opens this world up to be not as frightening as I think it often is depicted as being, but much more, putting it where it needs to be, because we're all going to deal with it. I mean, I think the statistics, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I was told was that over the age of 70, 1 in 2 of us. So it's either you or me. So we got to figure out how we deal with it, how we can communicate when it's hard for us to communicate with someone we love, and, for example, the big one is not telling them when they're wrong that their husband has been dead for 5 years, because then they're going to go through the grief all over again, things like that. There are major takeaways from this. And also, I think about becoming community in your own right. Don't hide away, don't close up your heart and your mind to being with other people who are going through this journey or who have gone through the journey. Become a member of community for yourself. And like they always say, if the airplane's going down and you have a small child, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, because otherwise you're useless. That the same with this, buckle up and realize that there are some magical moments you still may have and some magical takeaways that you can have from this. And, Ruby's Choice shows you what you can do with music and dance and art, and bringing back memories that just come fleetingly back in. And that's your tangible moments that you can have before the end.
Well, speaking of masks, you filmed this at the height of the pandemic, and you filmed it in Australia, and that was, I guess there's a backstory to that as well. Can you tell us what you had to do in order to make this film?
Well, my agent offered it to me, and obviously because of COVID, nobody was working, nothing was happening. And he said, how do you fancy going to Australia and doing this? And their COVID rules were even stronger than anywhere on the planet, as I recall, because they said to me, oh, it'll be fine. You'll come in, 2 weeks before filming, and we can do costumes and rehearsals and things. What they didn't tell me was that I would literally be taken off the airplane with the army or military, with machine guns and police officers. And, the airline staff are kind of looking at us sideways like, we didn't want to tell you, but you are now going to be a prisoner for 2 weeks. And I was. They took us off and they put us in what probably is a nice hotel, but my room was obviously the tiniest one overlooking the garbage. And nothing opened. You couldn't open a window. You couldn't move out of that room. They put you in there, locked the door, and just said, you're here until we knock on the door, and there will be a package with food in a brown paper bag. And then I would wait at the door when I knew that knock would come, and I'd open the door, and they'd got it down to find out where they would knock on the door and run. So you never even saw the person delivering the food. I mean, it was really existentially weird. But then what we did is, we went from this is awful to what can we do? And the other actors, especially through Jacqueline McKenzie, who's wonderful, they organized a Zoom. So for 3 hours a day, I had friends, new friends, people I didn't know, who were going to play my family. So by the time the 2 weeks were up, we all knew who one another were in real life. We all knew how we felt about the project. We'd worked on the lines with the actual writer, because he came on the Zoom. And by the time I arrived at the hotel where everybody was there for shooting, we all were masked up and separated and everything. But we knew who our characters were. We knew what we wanted to do. We actually felt like a bonded family.
Yeah, and I think that comes across strongly in the film. And just a side note to the individuals watching or listening, the room really was bare. Jane shared a lot of photos of it on social media. But being an artist, if I recall, you decorated the room with lots of art during that time, which you then donated to charity and fundraised for. So a lot of people benefited not only just from the film, but from a charitable way as well. Jane, I'm going to read a couple of quotes. This performance has been described as one of the most realistic and genuine portrayals of Alzheimer's disease. I think one of the best quotes I've read says, "Ruby represents the essence of what being alive is. She loves, she hurts, she feels so much, and the thought that people suffering from this disease could be discarded as useless or a burden breaks my heart." The second quote was, "This was the most powerful performance you have ever given. The depth and subtlety of emotion just brought Ruby to life in a way a lesser actress couldn't have. It would have been too easy for someone less talented to overdo Ruby and turn her into a caricature. But you made her so real. She's still in there. She's hurting and terrified one minute and full of joy." And that's the takeaway from the film, is Ruby was full of joy. And you mentioned earlier that the sense of community, and I'll give away one part for the people listening, is that ultimately Ruby joins a community. Ruby finds a place in a memory care community. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? I think the scene is great, and the results are even better.
Well, what happens is, the family say, we're not going to put her away in one of those terrible, horrible homes. We can't do that to Ruby. No, we can never do that to Ruby. And then eventually they realize that she's not safe to herself or others. And they've got to figure something out. And they take her to one of these homes. And they say, wouldn't you like to be in? And she's looking at someone who looks like he's dying. She says, well, dying people? No, I don't want to be here. And all through the movie, we hear about this friend of hers, who was her friend, who, had gone through a tough divorce. I can't remember her woman's name, but and she said, oh, and she can, help people, and she's an important person, and they've heard about this woman, but they don't think anything of it. And as they turn the corner and they're about to kind of walk out because they can't do this to Ruby, this woman's on a lovely veranda. She says, oh, hey. And she goes, oh, and what's she doing? Oh, come and have a cup of tea. And so they have a cup of tea, and all of a sudden Ruby is with another woman who she's known in the past, who has dementia, and they're chatting away, they're having a good time. She says, oh, it's lovely here, I'm having such a best time. And she says, and the best part is that when my family come to visit me, they're not all upset and anxious, because they come here and they're happy to see me, and we all have a lovely time, and then they go away. And meanwhile, we've got dancing and music and art, and I've got all these new friends. And so Ruby basically says to her family at the end, they said, well, you're not going to go into this home. And she goes, but it's my choice, it's Ruby's choice. And I want to be here. And, so-and-so says it's lovely. And I think it's lovely. And I want to be in a place that's lovely. So it's my choice.
It's Ruby's.
And so it really shows, the benefits of places like, the ones that you guys and all the people who are in the memory care business, have. And I've been to some memory cares. I've been to yours, which is phenomenal. But I've been to the one that Glenn Campbell was in. And I went, okay, that if it's like this is what I would want for my loved one, or even for myself.
Final question, Jane, about Ruby's Choice. Why is this film important for people to see?
It's important because this is probably the most fearful way of ending your life for anyone I know, including every doctor I speak to. They said they'd rather have cancer or heart disease or anything other than Alzheimer's. And rather than living in fear, live in the now, which is how Ruby and anyone with Alzheimer's is trying. They're grasping for the now. They're stuck in the past, but there are moments when they can be in the now. And I think if you are a caregiver or you're in that world, I think, Tim, when you watched the first time, you said this should be required viewing for anyone that works for me. I remember you saying that. But I just think for anyone, you are going to be around, either related to or dealing with someone with a memory care issue. Get your big girl boy pants on and learn what that ride looks like, and learn what the do's and don'ts are, and how you can help yourself and others in that journey, because it is a journey.
Wonderful. And Jane, we're very happy to announce that you will be visiting Dallas in June, and there will be a special screening of Ruby's Choice, and you'll be in attendance for that screening and have a question and answer session afterwards. There's a link below in this podcast for you to follow for more information about that. Jane, thank you for joining us, and thank you for talking to us about Ruby's Choice.
Thank you, Tim.